You got it. We are back. That's right. The world's most bullish podcast, bullish Bitcoin banter and bullshit, Pod 120, brought to you, as always, by the usual suspects, Mr. Orlin, aka the Trillion Dollar Man, Dr. Evil 10%, aka the People's Champ, myself, Sir Neverlook, aka the Excellence of Execution, and surprise, surprise, Mrs. No Show. Still, no show. What's going on?
It's like a bit of a quiet time of Bitcoin at the moment. Aside from SBF, that's where all the attention's going.
Price is quite a little bit crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's caused the up? Has there been anything in particular? Or do we think it's one of the funds buying in?
Yeah, I haven't seen anything. More buyers than sellers. But then today we've dipped down 5%. So it's just we're back to like volatility again a little bit, aren't we? So because in dollar terms, we were kind of sitting around that 25 to 30K mark, and we've been sat there for I don't know how long it is, but it feels like a year, right? And then we broke out of that 30K, went rocketing on pretty much right up to 40K. And over the last 24 hours, we've dropped down to 35K. So, nothing crazy, but I think all this really it's just speculation around that ETF. That's
Yeah.
what I think is driving a lot of the action, which is sad because as we discussed, that isn't like the end goal for Bitcoin in any shape or form. That shouldn't be motivating people, but if it is getting some normies off the couch and to investigate Bitcoin and the thing is, if they're buying Bitcoin now, that's a really good sign because that means they're not buying an ETF.
Yeah.
It means they're buying real Bitcoin, probably keeping it on an exchange, but that's part of the journey. So, but who knows?
And also as well, I mean, I've heard that BlackRock are thinking about the ETF for Ethereum as
Oh,
well. So
damn.
therefore, they're going to be hedging their bets, I'm sure. And if they've got $100, it's going to be 50-50.
Can we actually do an ETF on Ethereum? I thought with all the shitcoins, they won't be able to do that.
Yeah. Well,
That was the announcement.
yeah.
So that's what
They,
pumped that, but equally would have pumped Bitcoin as well by people thinking I'm not, I'm going to go with the number one and number two.
yeah. It's weird, isn't it? Because the fact they put an Ethereum one in, it means that they're so confident the Bitcoin one gets
Mm,
accepted. They're already doing a shitcoin one.
yeah,
So they're because
So
obviously
this
like
is
no one's got a Bitcoin one approved yet. I don't think like and obviously dozens and dozens of companies have put Bitcoin ETFs forward. They've all been rejected, every single one. But then BlackRock comes in and everyone's like, oh right, well they're obviously going to get approved, even though their application is near copy and paste what ours is. So we'll just have some little minor tweaks that they'll claim suddenly makes it applicable. And but then it's not a shitty company that's put this Ethereum ETF forward. It's fucking BlackRock again.
mm,
And you just go, all right, let's see. Let's see
I
what
think
happens.
I think we've already probably got what the top signal is. It's when they have a shitcoin mix ETF, where it's got things like Dink Doink and Shib and whatever else and Solana and whatever else is in there in your mix as your ETF. That is your top signal, everyone.
Oh yeah. Especially if that goes bullish, right? If they launch that and then it makes 300% in the first week, you go top signal. Like there's all the dumb money. I think the dumb money has just been spent. There's no
yeah.
more. We're out of dry powder now. It's fucking down only for 2 years from here.
There's no stimmy checks this time round though, so that's going to be missing. It'll be people having to pawn off their possessions because they can't afford the heating at the moment.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. That's what every other bull one's done. Like, obviously, like 3 years ago, during fucking lockdown, that was a very odd scenario that happened there, which is kind of annoying. Like, if for that kind of scenario to have happened and all that free money sloshing around, 0% interest rates, like debt was free. You literally didn't have to go to your job and still got 80% of the money you should have been paid. I don't know how Bitcoin didn't hit a fucking milli back then. Like, and what was going on? Like people had nothing to spend their money on, but
I
instead,
think
fucking dink doink and pictures of apes went up to millions instead.
it's still early, isn't it? we're still early. We still go wait for a number of things to move into place, more people to get educated. So I think anyone who's listening, thinking, "Oh, it's too late for me to buy Bitcoin," it's not. People are still buying JPEGs of apes.
Oh yeah. It's like every single person that's ever bought into Bitcoin always thinks they're too late. And there's famous tweets on there going, "Oh, Bitcoin's just hit $13. I'm not buying it at that price. It was $8 last week." Everyone thinks they're late, and
Yeah.
everyone's waiting for the dip. And as part of your Bitcoin journey is just to like bite the bullet, get off zero, start DCAing, and
Well,
you
I think
put
this
them
kind of
out.
like leads into one of the stories. So on Reddit, I think I dropped this one into our group chat because I said, "This is literally us." I think this was when Mr. All-In was in Bitcoin. It's just like, so in the link, it's someone's put Bitcoin, which is a Reddit subreddit. We put latest bull run. A friend of mine is claiming he's a genius because Bitcoin has had a surge in price recently. He claims to be 15 times up on his original investment. How do I explain that this doesn't make him right? That is the idiot, not me. And I kind of reflect on this and thought, that's probably a bit like me and Sir Neverlook when Mr. All-In was in, and we're looking going, it's just luck. You know, what's that, 7 years ago or so? I just remember looking and going, what the fuck is even Bitcoin? It sounds good. It's digital. Oh yeah, it's about the technology. It's not about the basics of economics and money, which is the reason why it's so great. And look at us now. We're on our Bitcoin admitting we were completely Bitcoin podcast admitting we were completely wrong.
Exactly.
But it was like a bit of reflection for me when I saw that post and then shared it with the group. So it got included in the pod notes this week.
It's fair play. I always remember your response to me when I first started talking about Bitcoin. You were like, "I think $1,000 is the top of Bitcoin." Like,
It
hasn't it
was.
just peaked? I'm like, no, it was $1,000 like a couple of years ago. Then it's gone down to 300, and now it's on the way up. It's like this is like people are realizing what Bitcoin is, and it's not only is a thing gonna. I think my original thesis for the price appreciation was going to be over the next 5 years it will 10x. That was my thing. So I was basically saying back then, I think it was about 2016. By 2021, Bitcoin should be about 10K. I was massively wrong with that. It was 10K within about 6 months. And then another 6 months, it was 20K.
Yeah.
And then unfortunately, another 6 months, it was 3K again. But we don't talk about that bit. That's the horrible bear market. But yeah, no,
I
fair play for
remember
putting
when
this
it
one
was
in because I
between
think this is
400 and 600. So for me, that was like, okay, that's pretty high. And obviously I could have bought in, but then it went to 1,000. I was like, oh, I'm too late. I'm way too late now. Like 1,000. Oh my gosh.
But it's the fact that people have created a subreddit called Bitcoin and then subscribe to it. And this has probably been going for years, probably since it was about 3K.
Yeah.
And they're still going, we're right. You know, I, to my knowledge, never created a subreddit to mock people buying Bitcoin. I just went, Mr. All-In, he's wrong. I went, this isn't right. What's this nonsense? Because I remember the conversations at 400, 600 pounds. I remember going, nah. And then it went up to what is it, over grand, and I think about 6,000, 7,000. I bought about £500 worth, and that was my punt. You know, it's pretty much shit coining at that point because I bought Bitcoin, I bought Ethereum, I bought XRP.
Yeah, and I can guarantee your mental model then would have been it's gone from like 400 from where I was looking at it to 6 grand. I don't want to lump in yet because I want to buy it cheaper. So it's 6K. So I'll just buy a bit because I'll wait for the dip to really go in. And then it keeps going up. And you end up lumping in much higher. Because I remember like my brother was going through exactly the same thing. I was telling him the same thing as you. He was more receptive than you guys were because he did start buying in. But he still had that nagging doubt going, but hold on, you bought at a much lower price and that wasn't that long ago. So the price will come back down to that, right? And I was going, well, I don't know. Maybe, but I would start to accumulate, because I think this is we're going to the moon right now. So pack your bags type thing. And I remember him waiting around that 3K mark going, I think it just went over 3K or something. And he was like, oh, the amount of money I've got, I can get a nice round number worth of Bitcoin. By the time he pressed buy, it was 6K, and which was like 4 days later. We're in a bull market and freaking things move fast. And yeah, but it is sad that even today that we've got people here going, because the thing is though, the actual spirit of the post is right. Just because an asset goes up 15x doesn't mean it's a good asset. You know, we just talked about shitcoins and NFTs. A load of them went up 15x, and that just because your NFT went up by 15x doesn't mean you're right. It doesn't mean that NFT has value. It just means at the moment you look right. But if you exit the asset now, yeah, you make 15x on your money. But if you hold it for any period of time, all those gains will be eroded, and you'll end up losing your original investment.
Oh, here we go. The Bitcoin sub was created 12 years ago.
Yes.
Is it maybe time to admit that you were wrong?
Yeah. I know.
They're so nearly as old as Bitcoin itself. I mean, Bitcoin's going to be 15, isn't it?
Ever since I've been in Bitcoin has existed. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think weirdly, I think my first exposure to Bitcoin might actually be Bitcoin.
Well, that's a gay revelation right there.
Because their posts are quite funny, right? They're just like taking the piss out of. Because weirdly, I thought like Bitcoin, like back in the day when I wasn't a Bitcoiner, I thought Bitcoin was a little bit like Wall Street bets. You know, just kind of full of degens. People lose their money, and you just make memes out of it. And it's kind of funny, right? Wouldn't it be hilarious if you put your entire college fund on a stupid stock and go 100x leverage and then just lose it within 3 minutes? It's worth it for the memes.
For the lols, yeah, for the memes.
And you screenshot it and post it. And I just kind of thought, Bitcoin was, I read it a bit like that, kind of taking the piss out of Bitcoiners, which essentially, in my mind, were like Wall Street bet degens when I first didn't understand Bitcoin. And then obviously, yeah, you do your read and you do your research and you realize, oh no, the Bitcoin subbers, they're the jokers. Or they're the degens, weirdly, because they're so fucking full of arrogance and with pride and ego. They can't accept that they've been wrong for those 12 years. Because Jesus, just imagine being the guy that started our Bitcoin 12 years ago. If he'd have just put $1,000 into Bitcoin, he would be like probably have 100 million now. And instead, he runs a marginally successful subreddit.
I don't understand what your point is. There's 160,000 people who subscribe to that. It's really successful, and he's a moderator of it.
There you go. Who needs yachts? And
at this very moment, he'll be he'll be sucking the Cheeto dust off his fingers to type you a message.
Yeah. Who needs them bitches and big titty bitches? I got a subreddit, bitches.
Yeah.
Sweet. But then, but we talked about price. So the top story is from Eugene Grant on Twitter, who has basically said he posted a graph basically saying that Bitcoin's gone from 3 cents in 2013 to 30K in 2023 and potentially to 300 million. Didn't put a date below it, but it looks like they're going in 10-year intervals there. So looks like it's by 2033, maybe we're at 300 million. And so his analysis of this chart, which to me looks fucking love that. What a fucking chart. I hate charts, but if it confirms my bias, then maybe I'll agree. And that confirms my bias. But his analysis on that chart is anything that even remotely close to this won't be freedom or fix or change or revolution or firth turning. It will be an absolute cataclysm of human misery. So he doesn't see Bitcoin essentially going to infinity. Like I think once you get to 300 million a coin, right, you just go. In my mind, that's fucking infinity. Right? It's just
Yeah.
like Jesus Christ. Like with one
Well,
coin, 300 million. If the US dollar is still standing at that point, like fucking fair play. But he doesn't see Bitcoin as freedom, a fix, a change, or a revolution, or a firth turning. He sees it just as pure misery.
Well, I don't get this because you look at his bio and he's got Bitcoin is a peaceful revolution.
yeah, and that's what I wanted to discuss on the pod
Yeah,
because
so I don't know who this person is, but I just found it very strange.
yeah, because at
You
one
got,
point, yeah,
I
let's say,
think he's specifically talking about the speed of it. I think if he basically goes, if Bitcoin goes from where it is today, which by and large its impact is zero, right, on the existing financial world, $500 billion being in Bitcoin, nothing. They freaking America print that on a random Tuesday, so zero impact. Whereas if it goes to 300 million a coin from 30K in a 10-year period, it has basically absorbed the entire GDP of the globe in a 10-year period. So I think his main statement is it's the speed of the collapse that will hurt people. That's his argument, even
right.
though he is a Bitcoiner.
but then again, we're on a trajectory where fiat currency is collapsing, and that will cause a lot of misery. So it's kind of like, how do you balance the two?
But my thing is when Bitcoin does increase, people do kind of take part of that and then they buy other assets as well. So it kind of props up other parts of the economy. And, people will be buying the yachts, the cars, the houses. So
And
inadvertently,
we need someone to clean the deck on our boats.
yeah,
There will be jobs.
exactly, but it will again it will be bringing about jobs, if people are doing house extensions, and so it will stimulate the economy in a roundabout way, but it'll all be stemmed from Bitcoin
Well, it's
and the
also
price increasing.
how the adoption happens. So if you go like joint currency route like El Salvador, it allows people to move onto it. I think that's where it needs to head
I think
because
I think that's a smart way for most of it, in terms of the joint currency. I don't ever see there being a world where it's just and or either or. Sorry, it's just together, and slowly people transition over to it. But they do transition over to it because more and more people are already getting it. When they're, I think we may have covered it, but when they're looking at their shopping basket, or for example, now people are trying to renew their mortgages and they're like, oh my gosh, I was on this 1% rate and then all of a sudden the rates increased and I can't afford it. And there's various different examples of just living life and how difficult it is. Whereas when you're on that Bitcoin standard and things, as we were saying, cost this price, and we have a deflationary economy instead of inflationary, which isn't necessarily needed, then Bitcoin really starts to perk a lot of more ears up and a lot more people's impression of how an economy should be run. And people start taking and paying attention to it.
Yeah. I mean, my argument against all this is, unfortunately, I agree with him to a certain degree. I think there was going to be a lot of human misery when Bitcoin hits this price, but that's got nothing to do with Bitcoin. That's got everything to do with fiat. Like you're blaming the life raft as opposed to the Titanic that we are all on, which is fiat, and it smashed into the fucking iceberg 50 years ago and started taking on water, and they did nothing to fix it, and the hole in the ship got bigger and bigger, and it's flooded the ship, and now all signs is we're going under, and thank God for Satoshi that 15 years ago he created the life raft, which is Bitcoin. So it now gives us a route off the Titanic. Before we'd just gone down with the ship. There was literally nowhere to go. So like Bitcoin is not to blame for this. Like this guy's got it completely backwards. And And who knows whether the pace of hyper Bitcoinization happens within a decade, 2 decades, or 3 decades. Who knows? Like it's almost like inevitable that it happens at some point, just based on like sound money will always attract the majority of the wealth of the world. It's just natural. If 2 people have £100,000, but one person holds it in dollars and one holds it in Bitcoin, and this person's that holds the dollars is just getting eroded and stays at about 100 grand, but the spending power of that money goes down and down and down. Whereas the person that put the 100 grand into Bitcoin ends up having millions and of worth of dollars and can spend and buy multiple houses and essentially is financially free. The person that made the bad decision will concede and jump aboard the correct decision, right? It's natural.
Yeah.
Like everyone jumps ship eventually, just at different points. So Bitcoin is not to blame. It's purely the life raft. So whether it happens in 6 months, 6 years, 60 years, Bitcoin is literally the solution that we rebuild from. Unfortunately, fiat and the world we live in now, that there is no easy transition into.
But you think about what the
world.
fiat. So the last 50 years, what has it stood for?
War.
Yep.
The ability to backhandedly take people's wealth as well in plain sight by printing,
consumerism, social media.
You got things such as the food supply being tainted, where so what's which I saw it written really well. It's no longer food, it's just it's factory produced food substitute.
Yeah,
that's kind of like with price of value, with money going down but wages not going up, people aren't eating the food which we're programmed to eat or which we can digest. We're eating these food substitutes, and that's the one which stuck out for me. But wars, corruption, theft off everyone. So you kind of think, what's happened the last 50 years? It's not good. It's just happened quite slowly. It hasn't happened like we're in, say, Zimbabwe, where it's been a matter of a year and it's gone into thousands of percent of inflation. But it's just happening slowly. It's a boiling frog.
Well, the thing is, the reason why it doesn't seem too bad is because the majority of people saying that either live in Europe or America. Like go to the Middle East or one of the countries that have been on the end of the fiat wars. They're all dead, right? Their countries have been bombed to shit. Yeah, so we've been very fortunate that we're under essentially an umbrella because we live in countries where the people running this fiat system live as well. So they don't want this country bombed to shit. Because they live here. But if you look at the rest of the world, it has been bombed to shit. And it's been completely devastating. So this guy going, oh, it'll be a cataclysm of human misery if this happens. You go, well, potentially Europe and America finally get a bit of a taste of their own medicine. But guess what? The Middle East, there will be a period of peace for them because finally those American and European bombs will stop because there are bigger fish to fry back home.
And America will stop trying to control their governments. Yeah.
Because they won't be even able to control their own because they've lost control of their own.
What I found really interesting is the Israel-Hamas war, or whatever you want to call it at the moment. I'm not going to go into the subject, but Hamas was funded by Israel and the US.
Yeah.
So, initially, not going into what's currently happened, but you kind of think that's backfired. And that's literally what the US has done on various different governments. It's always done these coups.
Yeah.
And it's always interfered in countries.
Yeah. And you said the word backfired there, but I would say worked exactly as expected.
Yeah, I was going to say, because it's not the first time, and then it's allowed them to go to war to then press the button on the money printer as well. But I do think, and again, without going into it, this is kind of plays into the classic Ray Dalio principles. of them stretching themselves, because right now we've got 3 wars that we know of going on, because you've got that economic war with China, although they seem like they're on the brink of the collapse or something's happening over there. Then you've got the Ukraine-Russia war, which they're supporting, and then they've got this war as well. And it's like,
and there's other ones which are flaring up. What's the one in Africa as well, where they had a coup because it was an American-backed government?
Niger.
They had a, so is that one which potentially has the influx, and once again it's be overstretched. But yeah, good point about the kind of like not the backfiring but perfectly planned. But this is, by having a sound money, there's no real encouragement to do this. You don't have the funds to stretch yourself.
Correct. No.
But yeah, that's a massive rabbit hole.
As always.
It's a big one, right? Because it's the big question that I find that even like me and my brother, it still comes up, right? In Bitcoin hyperionization, like what does happen, to healthcare, the police, the government, like what is the transition like? And he's always like pushing for how can we make this smoother? And my argument always is it will just happen at the pace it happens at. We can't control when people buy Bitcoin, right? It'll be a real
economy is the way I always think about it. So when I say real economy, it'll be supply and demand. Healthcare will emerge because you need it, and the systems will emerge to
the
form
issue
it
is,
properly.
though, it's that transition, isn't it? Like, how do you get? Because I totally agree. Fast forward 100 years, we're probably on Bitcoin. We're on a Bitcoin standard. Everything's much less corrupt. Supply and demand. The free market is working exactly as it should work. But between now and then, there's a collapse, and then there's a rebuild. There's a period of time there where there's a fuckload of stuff that the government do that ain't getting done. So how do we make that smoother? And it's just a case of, and my argument always
cause
is
issues
just
because
get to the citadel and wait it out for a couple of decades.
Yeah,
come back out, because
I think you're going to have the immediate, which will be, the fact that we have all these government-backed services which are meaningless. You look at the NHS and what is it, 1 doctor to 20? No, it's more than that. Is it 40 staff?
Wow.
Yeah. It's something ridiculous, but you kind of think that system's going to collapse. And they're still going to keep on trying to feed it to you, but you're like, well, I don't want it. And they can't sustain it, and we are getting to the point of non-sustaining. So you kind of think, and that's nothing to do with Bitcoin as well.
Oh yeah. There's a US president or presidential candidate called Vivek. He's a guy that's just crossed my path. I've listened to a few of his podcasts. He seems to be a very well-spoken guy, and is getting a bit of traction in the latest election. One of his policies he just put forward, he tweeted out, I don't know if he was drunk or not. He basically went, I'm going to fire 50% of government employees the day that I get into office. And then he replies to his own tweet going, how am I going to do this? If your social security number ends in an odd number, you're fired. That's how I'm going to do it. I'm not going to look at stuff. It's like, and then his next tweet is, and nothing will change in the government services. I can guarantee everything will still happen the same. There is so much bloat and inefficiency.
Like literally, if you got rid of 50% of the back office staff in the public services in the UK, nothing would change. You just need the front line. So you need the teachers, you need the nurses, doctors, and you probably get the same service.
Naturally, it would get better because they would do more with less.
You'd have you potentially have extra money for things like textbooks and resources for schools. And you get rid of a layer who don't really have a job, so make up things to do.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably got a lot of bloat in it, hasn't it, over the years?
Well, you never see deflation in a government, do you?
Never.
You see austerity, which is not spending anymore, but it's certainly not spending any less.
No, it's just we're still going to spend more, just not quite as much as last year.
Yeah. Should we move on to the next story?
Yeah, back to Reddit.
So, why hasn't the science of economics made more progress in the last 100 years? And I'll be honest, the topic of economics isn't something that I've been very heavily focused on. I know that you've just come back from a Fiat holiday, Dr. Evil 10%, and you took the principles of economics. So why don't you run us through this one?
I mean, the thing which I always think about economics is it's the fundamentals of how, I suppose, a society functions in terms of trade. But we always think that the correct way of functioning now is a Keynesian way. And a Keynesian way is basically inflationary. But to be inflationary, to have an inflationary currency, you need to have an inflationary population. So it's kind of like fundamentally flawed. So everyone's been brainwashed with this propaganda ultimately. And so this post said, how come nothing's changed in 100 years? Well, you've basically been preaching Keynes, haven't you, for 100 years? And everyone's believing it, but the fact is it doesn't work. And historically it's been shown not to work. So it's been implemented in ancient China, it's been implemented in ancient Rome, basically so they could steal money off the citizens and spend as much as they want as a government. But someone's chirped in and said, it's called Bitcoin. It'll probably get dragged out in the net for saying it. This sub is very biased against it, but that's the God's honest truth. It's relatively instant, transparent, predictable, and has a sound monetary policy. It seems volatile when you measure it in government dog shit, but as a system, it's a real deal. It's not going away. It'll change everything, mark my words. When it's like the final bit, you have a message from Ask Economics. You've been permanently banned from participating. They won't even discuss it. And I think this is like Reddit. I think 90% of it is dog shit, isn't it? And it's just full of neckbeards who want to be socialists, but will probably be the first people who would be shot by the leaders.
And I think, unfortunately, I think it's been hugely co-opted by government as well. When they talk about their government misinformation kind of initiatives and they're monitoring social media, I think they've hugely infiltrated. Like Reddit is very easy to control. There's probably only a couple of hundred subreddits that have notable populations. So becoming moderators in there and having the ability to ban people, it could be a neckbeard that's just triggered by the word Bitcoin. Yep, because Bitcoin gets tagged as far right and Reddit is far left. So it hits against that. But then it also could just be a government operative in there being told, anyone recommends Bitcoin in any sub, just ban them. Instant ban. Shut the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, you have someone higher up, but I mean, you have a load of useful idiots lower down, won't you, who will think, oh yeah, this is a correct thing to do. Oh, yeah. No government's ever done wrong against their people. People who stop free speech, they've never been in the wrong. But yeah, you just look at things like this, and it does make you despair that there are people who follow this. This is what they believe.
It goes back to what we were saying at the beginning, like what has changed in the fiat world? This person's asking, why hasn't economics progressed in the last 100 years? And literally the answer is because we've become completely wedded to the cult of Keynesian economics. And the entire world is being
built. And we call it pretty much normal economics. That's meant to be the way, whereas it never has historically. Whereas the Austrian way is meant to be seen as a cult one, whereas historically that is the real economics.
Yeah. Economics pre 50 years ago, or really it is nearly 100 years ago. It's like
Keynes was around about the First World War or Second World War, wasn't he?
Yeah, well, it's 1971 that we completely came off the gold standard. But yeah, Keynes came in like well earlier than that.
Yeah, you mean Keynes the known paedophile?
Let's just bash him for his economics. That's not like But it's like literally like this person is even asking. They're asking the right question, right? They're going, why hasn't economics like evolved and progressed in 100 years? That's a very good question.
But does it need to? If we're actually looking at some sound economic models, it doesn't need to. It's the fundamentals of how, like a society, economy functions.
Yeah, I think what they're alluding to really is the fact that if you look back over the history of money, as obviously we have a lot, is that money does evolve So the economics and has evolved a lot. And over like the last couple of thousand years, money has can continue evolving, and we're constantly searching out sound money. And it's the last 100 years really where we completely jumped the shark. It's like, whoops. It was weirdly like the progression to sound money by the human race over the last couple of thousand years was just up and to the right. We were getting it.
Yeah, but we are just a blip. Going on to like that, we are, 50 years is just a minor blip in there, and we're still sailing up, and like, as we believe, Bitcoin is the sail back up, so we stop going down, we're going shoot back up into sound money, as long as, well, we don't come up with paper Bitcoin or something stupid in the future.
I know you're right. Yeah, in a 2,000-year timeline, 50 years is a blip. It just, unfortunately, we live through the majority of that fucking 50 years. So it's kind of stings a little bit, but yeah, and the thing is, like, even this question would be triggering to anyone that knows the truth about Keynesian economics and wants to hide the truth. This would be a triggering question, right? Because if you genuinely studied the history of money, genuinely, right, and then considered right where we were, it is an upward progression. We were getting closer and closer and closer to sound money that worked globally, easily divisible, scarce supply, easy to transmit, easy to secure. Gold was the best we had, and then we went into a fiat version of it.
And there wasn't wars, like there were wars as well, as in on the scale of wars, because that's when obviously it happened, wasn't it? In terms of World War One, straight away the UK came off the gold standard at that point.
Yeah,
and then they robbed the average person in terms of their wealth by requesting that they give the gold to be able to go to war, and lied to them.
But also think, First World War was 4 years. I know it's long, but then think to what America have been doing lately. What was it, 20 years in Afghanistan?
Well, yeah.
That's how ridiculous things have got. 4 years bankrupted most countries in the world.
Yeah. And if you and I know they actually do polls as well in terms of asking people whether or not they should go to war. And then, of course, if they did the same polls saying we should be going, or should we go to war, and it's going to cost you, then they would have come up with a different. Yeah, of course.
Because exactly what you said happened in the First World War in the UK. They put out government bonds, which is pretty much, do you agree with going to war? And then they actually printed that they're oversubscribed. They weren't. They printed money. So they basically constantly depegged gold, the pound from gold. And that's how they got away with it, and basically devalued everyone's savings, said, yeah, we're going to war with this treasure chest, but basically store everyone's money.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, the thing is, like, the first reason to always come off the gold standard always gets pitched very rationally, and it's almost like you can't say no, right? We need to come off the gold standard for a short period of time to beat the Nazis. Otherwise, we're going to get overrun and everyone's going to die, right? So yeah, we're going to devalue your life savings and all that, but only for a short period of time. But then, so everyone kind of largely agrees with that in wartime, and you go, okay. But it turns out the second the government get that taste of that sweet, free printed money, they can never take that first hit was too sweet. They always want to get that high again, and they never come off. And that's obviously what happened to the UK. But you can see, like, I must admit, if I try and put myself back into 1914, and I'm sat there, like, no internet, just fucking papers, and a radio, and I'm seeing bombs hit the city, and the government basically says on the radio, we're going to come off the gold standard and start. I know our money was pegged 1-to-1, which I'm not even sure people fucking understood. Let's be honest. So who knows if I was back then, would I even have understood that? Because people don't get it now. So, and then they kind of tell you, like how all your paper is meant to match 1-to-1 of the gold that you gave us. Yeah, we're just going to start printing some paper and it doesn't match to anything. But that will allow us to buy the weapons we need to win this war. I'd be sat there going, I'd be thumbs up. I'll vote for that. And without knowing the consequences, obviously we're sitting here now with the benefit of hindsight and going, that started what we now are going to be living through, which is the great collapse of the fiat economy. And
That's
it's almost
a really
case of
good
like,
question,
maybe you could lose the
actually.
war.
Yeah, raising a really good question as to whether or not the individual back in the day had the financial acumen and awareness of money being 1-to-1. I mean, but if you think about it today, with all of the technology and all of the information that's out there, we live in an information-rich age. People don't understand money now.
No. Yeah.
So why would they back then? And the dissemination of information would have been even harder then.
It would have been more likely they understood money, though, purely for the fact that they would have been trading gold not so long before that. Yeah, literally like piece for piece. And then when the gold got confiscated, you got the paper deposits, you'd be like, oh, right, okay, like this paper represents that much gold. So I think it's almost like how we are with our food now, where even though technology and information is much more ready for us in this modern age, we are also so far away from our food and from our money that it doesn't get explained, which is why we get fed sludge and we have money that's backed by nothing. Whereas if you go back only 100 years, they were so close to their food. The food that they were eating were probably the animals that were down the road. Right? They absolutely knew what meat they were eating. What veg they were eating was, Farmer Jeff farms that. I literally know him, right? And it's just, I buy it from him. And their money would have been, these gold coins. And I have switched them for fiat and I have these paper notes, but I gave the bank my fiat. They were so close to money and so close to food that weirdly, I think they would have probably understood it. But then when faced with the fact of you're about to lose everything and be invaded by these evil Nazis, is it okay if we devalue the money by a bit, only for a couple of years, and we'll go back? I can see them voting for that. But fast forwarding to today, where does our food come from? It comes in a nice little packet, cellophane, with a nice picture on the front. What are the ingredients? You don't fucking know. And it's the same as your money. Your money comes out nice and crisp out of a machine. What's it backed by? It's got the Queen's head on it. Or has it got the King's head on our money yet? Is that a thing?
No.
Yeah, but we've got so much of a Queen's head still in circulation, the King's won't really start to affect it.
Oh, right. I haven't seen a King's head yet.
Yeah, so it's like when Charles dies within the next 10 years, you still won't have much of his currency, and it's because Queen Elizabeth was on the throne for so long.
But they switched out all the money recently.
So it's actually printed with his head on?
Yeah, they've got coins and notes with him on it.
Because they switched out all the notes got switched out recently, didn't they, for the plastic kind of non like foldable money.
Yeah, and then it'll be William, and maybe William will get slightly longer on notes, so we might actually get towards replacing all the money.
Yeah. Sweet. What's our next story? Oh no. Our next story is a sad one. So
there's an update. Sam, see me updates.
Yeah, there's an update, and it slightly redeems the story somewhat, but so this is Rick. So Rick is a long-term Bitcoiner. He says he's been in Bitcoin since 2012. So a long time. And he had, but slight like error in his story. Him and his dad had 25 Bitcoin. If he'd been in that long, I would have thought that maybe he would have had a little bit more, because 25 Bitcoin back then would have been like $1. Like, what you're buying $1 worth of Bitcoin for? But anyway, skipping through that, he's basically posted, he's in El Salvador with his dad. He is a massive Bitcoiner. I've clicked on his profile, and he's been doing talks about Bitcoin, about how to secure your Bitcoin. all that kind of stuff. And essentially, his 25 Bitcoin has been stolen. He woke up one day in El Salvador, checked his hardware or checked his wallet, and the balance was zero. And what turned out to have happened is that unfortunately he left his self-custody to his dad, who was a developer, and he kept his seed words in an online password manager. So as much as he had a very secure password for this password manager, he believes, because obviously you never really know where the Bitcoin's gone, because you wake up one day and it's gone, right? But the fact is that he didn't have it in a hardware wallet. So the 24 words were not created in an offline environment where he could just write them down and then store them away. They were created in a digital environment and then stored them digitally on a computer, encrypted behind a very strong password. But the problem is, whenever you save any password or any seed phrase on a computer, we know, right? How many times have we said it? Assume, no matter how encrypted it is, assume it's just open to the internet and someone's going to grab your 24 words, put it into their wallet and work all your coins. And that's what's happened to the poor guy. So him and his dad, 25 Bitcoin worth about $1 million gone overnight. They're in El Salvador having the time of their life, getting into the Citadel, building the first relationships to go, what properties are we going to buy? And when Bitcoin goes to the moon and 100x's, what we doing in El Salvador? And he posts this 5-minute video going, I've lost a lot.
It actually worries me that I'm going to be my own worst enemy and do something similar in terms of if I was to move it to somewhere or anything. And I forgot what I was watching, but effectively it said, the best password protection is when you lose the password. And I'm not there, obviously, but I don't even think about it. I don't move it. It's in cold storage and on the cold wallet, and I just leave it. And watching this video, I really felt for him, because he can read in the comments, and even someone said, I'd love to chuck you a couple of sats, and he was just like, no, give it to charity as a donation. It's my fault. And what a guy. But it does just go to show that this is so important in terms of security.
Yeah, it's just the whole password manager. When I heard that on the video, I was just like, God, what were you thinking? Your dad's a developer. It's like, you're not a techie, you don't really like Twitter, blah blah blah. Your dad's a developer, so he's at least a techie. He should know better, even if you don't. And reading the update, it just basically
says... Did you call him a retard in your mind?
Yeah, of course I did.
You know what, though? The worst type of person that I found that comes into Bitcoin are the developers, because they feel that they can secure Bitcoin better than a hardware wallet. And I think that's what's happened in their scenario, which is, if you don't know your way around tech, keeping your 24 words on your machine is dangerous. But I know tech. I know how to create a safe environment on my PC. I can store the words in there, password protect it, encrypt it, and you go, right, that's your ego talking. And you're putting your life savings behind your ego. If you are wrong, you lose everything.
It's so true. Yeah.
Maybe park your ego in the bank and go, use a fucking hardware wallet. You got $1 million. A hardware wallet cost $100. Buy one, put it on that. Generate the 24 words offline. But it's horrible, isn't it? Because they literally know. I clicked on his profile, and he's there talking, doing a talk in a bar with a load of people in it. And he's talking about hardware wallets. He knows about hardware wallets. but he stored his own keys in his 25 Bitcoin. He split them over 3 wallets, and they all got hacked at the same time and got wiped.
Wow.
So he was devastated. But however, that was a couple of days ago. So the update is, because originally he tracked the coins, they went straight to CoinJoin, got mixed, and then just largely disappeared. However, the sleuths that are Bitcoin Twitter, some people were tracking the coins, and as we kind of know with this CoinJoin thing, Jesus, like it seems to be every time people CoinJoin, if you really spend enough time on it, you can unjoin these coins that were supposedly joined and mixed. And you're meant to be putting it through the washing machine, right? It's meant to just be all fucking mixed in, and it's all just who knows what the hell's going on at the end of it. But Bitcoin has found it. Bitcoin has found his coins pop out the other end and end up in Binance. So the latest update as of recording is he's contacted Binance. He's filed a police report because obviously Binance can't do shit unless he actually records this as a crime, which weirdly, I think it probably every Bitcoiner almost forgets that you have to record things as a crime. You just kind of go, I'm a Bitcoiner. If I lose my Bitcoin, it's fucking on me, right?
Yeah, I didn't actually think that this would be even allowed to, because where's the recourse? We know that it's on you, not your keys.
And in reality, it still is on him. It's just that he needs a police number just to go, this is a crime. So Binance can then investigate properly and go, oh, okay, we now have, because at the moment, all this is one guy on Twitter going, here's my 25 Bitcoin. It's gone to Binance. He could be trolling completely, right? This could be someone else's wallet that they sent to Bitcoin, that they sent to Binance, and they're going to do whatever with it, maybe sell it, do whatever, send it to their own hardware wallet. And he's going, secure those funds and send them to me. Clearly, Binance need some level of, well, hold on, you need to fucking verify who you are. Are you genuinely the owner of these coins? You need to file a police report, prove that you own these coins in the first place. And then once you've done that, if we can then track them to our exchange, we will freeze them for you, make sure no one does anything with them. And if you prove that you have ownership, we'll send them to you back. So who knows? Maybe, at the moment, he's going, Binance are being super helpful, super responsive. So it looks like whoever grabbed his coins sent them straight to Binance. I must admit, one of the number one rules of stealing Bitcoin, not that I want to teach people how to steal Bitcoin, but don't put it on an exchange too quick. You got to leave it in cold storage for a couple of years. Let the trail go cold.
I was going to say it depends how much, because you remember.
If you steal 4,000 Bitcoin, like the rapper person.
That couple, wasn't it? They still
About
even
4
years
billion.
late.
They stole 4 billion, didn't they? 4 billion worth of
Well,
Bitcoin.
back in the day, it was a couple 100 million, and then over time it went to 4 billion. So it was way too hot.
But it's still gonna pop up eventually, because, and this is it leads into Satoshi, doesn't it? In terms of Satoshi still hasn't moved his. We hope that it never does. But
well, when Craig Wright has to pay those court fees, maybe he'll take them out of his wallet.
Yes, I've missed your wisdom, Dr. Evil 10%.
It was only one show which wasn't here.
Oh yeah, we didn't do the other show as well.
Yeah.
But technically you would have got a late mark on that one as well.
Gonna say my attendance looks brilliant next to Miss No Show.
This is true.
All right,
well, yeah. So with the coins being found on Binance, who then picks that up?
Well, it's essentially, if it seems like it's going well, but essentially what his report would have been is, I've had 25 Bitcoin stolen from me. They just hit your exchange, freeze that account. And then hopefully then if they do freeze the account, to stop them essentially selling them or moving them on. This is always obviously the problem about using exchanges, right? If that person just sent it to their own wallet, there's fuck all we can do. It's just another ledger, another Jade, another whatever, right?
But the end person wanted to exchange it into fiat.
It looks like that way, exactly. That this person isn't a Bitcoiner. They're a classic scammer, just looking to grab Bitcoin, sell it for fiat, and then probably buy a Lambo with it, right? And
but once you get into, like the fiat world, you've got KYC on the exchange. You've got transfer to bank accounts, which are being KYC'd. So it's literally like you're cornered. Like at this point, if they've actually identified the person properly, that person's done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At the very least, they'll lose their Bitcoin. At the very worst, they'll get charged with stealing $1 million worth of Bitcoin. So who knows? Maybe there'd be a happy ending. So hopefully we can update this story in the coming weeks or months, and it'd be great to see, because the first update from this guy was just the Bitcoin's gone. They just coin joined it. I'm accepting the loss. I'm an idiot. We made massive mistakes in our storage of the security. Fuck it. But weirdly, by coming and going public and posting the transaction IDs of the coins leaving his wallet, he allowed Bitcoin Twitter to do its thing. And Bitcoin Twitter managed to uncoin join his coins, find it through the Binance. And at the moment, Binance are being cooperative. And who knows, maybe those coins are now frozen at least. So provided he can prove they're his, who knows, maybe he gets his 25 Bitcoin back. It'd be a nice story, but for everyone else, it's just a case of do not store your 24 words on your computer, your phone, anything. If they're not, literally a pencil is better than anything digital. It's like completely the opposite. You have to unlearn so many things. I think when you're doing work, so often you're like, oh, I'm doing this properly. I'll create a document and type it in the laptop. No, Bitcoin is the opposite. Offline, the internet is your enemy. Any internet connected device, assume it is compromised. Assume your worst enemy is looking at everything, and write it and a little bit of paper next to that laptop that is not digitally connected, and create it in a wallet that is offline. So it's just yet another lesson. He's kind of joking, going, oh, I'm going to stay in Bitcoin, and if anything, I'll be the poster boy for how you don't store your keys. And it'd be sad if that ends up being what his claim to fame is. Hopefully he ends up being like made a massive mistake, but it'd be nice if he gets him back, but who knows? It's probably still a long shot at this point.
Right, let's move on.
We've got to be talking about this guy. Freaking, how's he come up again? Freaking Prince Charles. King Charles.
Good old sausage fingers.
Inflation Weekly.
Right. Yeah. King in Gold Crown says they have inflation and the cost of living under control. Really? Really, Charles?
I love Edward Snowden's comment on this. It made me laugh, made me lol. So Edward Snowden in his tweet has put the masculine urge to complain about the cost of living from your gold chair while wearing Mimar's snow leopard snuggie and egg-sized diamond hat. And it's like, it's absolutely spot on, isn't it? Like, there's estimates on how much all that kind of like get up costs. Yeah. I think it's meant to be millions or even billions with the amount of jewels which he has. Yeah. And he talks about inflation, yet he's hoarding all these riches, and he's surrounded by all these people who are probably in their jobs through their families, and their families have hoarded all these riches. Inflation doesn't bother them. It makes them richer. So we know he's talking shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully for those that aren't just listening, which we get a lot of in terms of on a streaming service, and you're watching this on YouTube, I think, of course, you'll play the video, Mr. Rollin, and you'll see the bling that Charles is dripped in. And it's just astonishing that anybody advised him to say those words whilst draped like that.
It's
I think
also
it's
the fact he says my government will continue to bring down inflation.
yeah.
And it's like the question is, how did inflation happen?
I know. Through the government.
Yeah.
So it's their lie at the moment. Rishi is constantly saying he's halved inflation. He's a fucking genius. And you go, it just means that things are still going up, but by half as much. And you decided that. You literally you choose how fast the printer goes, and you just slowed it down
Yeah.
by half. But
He
it's
was the
still
chancellor.
printing, and it's still printing way faster than it should be, because it shouldn't be printing at all. But yeah, I think this just I think the UK is just completely fucked, because I think because we are one of the first, or like one of the still kind of reigning kind of like world powers, we still have this weird tradition of having kings and queens and all that bollocks. And we've still got a lot of the stuff that we stole from lots of other countries. I'm pretty sure that the big diamond in the crown is some precious stone from Egypt or something, and they really want it back. I can't, but we still wear it. You know, it's worth like 200 million, or like it's priceless. It's like the biggest diamond in the world. There's not a bigger one than it. It's in the middle of the crown that the king or queen wears. And it's just all this pomps and just ceremony. And it's all just so antiquated and so just from another era. But part of what they need to do is like flex on us that the royalty and government are so above us and so make so many tough decisions that we need them. So they still do it. They still do all this pomp and ceremony, and they all get dressed up in their silly fancy dress gowns and hats, and they sit in gold chairs, and it's so ridiculous, right? But it's all a bit of a, it's almost like when you go to an interview and the person interviewing you sits in a chair that's taller than you. You know, it's a power dynamic, right? They're just trying to flex on you to go, just so you know, in this conversation, you're the bitch, I'm the alpha. Fucking know it, right? And this is just a much more extreme version of that, but it just doesn't work anymore, because he's literally because he's trying to be a man of the people in his speech by going, we're decreasing inflation, we're going to ease the cost of living for families, while sitting in a chair that probably would feed the entire nation for 4 years. Like, bro, like, where's your emotional intelligence here, dude? It's just if we're calling top signals for fiat, here's a top signal. Here's a king probably sat with $1 billion hat on and a 200 million cloak on, saying he's helping the cost of living crisis. And there's families all across the country getting food stamps, living off 10, 20 pounds a week. Whilst this fucker's sitting there with $1 billion hat on.
He works so hard for the country. And so did his mum.
Yeah. It's a tough one, that one, isn't it? Just because there's no words for it. It's like,
but it's also what he says. You know, he's had this speech prepared for him by his minders. And he talks about bringing down inflation, about responsible decisions on spending and borrowing. But it's like, you know, when you actually realize what caused this inflation, it's a government who you are telling us are going to sort it out. And it's just absolutely insane, because at the time when we were doing all the stuff like furlough, I remember saying to the wife, you do realize that this is like once in a lifetime chance. If this isn't the time to do it, we've ruined it. So if Ebola goes airborne, we're fucked. We can never do this again. So it's got to be the right time, because this is going to fuck us up for about 10 years. And we did it because the government and the elites were so desperate to get their hands on the money at the time, but they needed something, because this was never about COVID. Never, ever. and we've ended up with a situation where, they're claiming, what is it now, about 6% inflation? Times it by 3. Always times it by 3 is a general rule, and that's how much it's going up at the moment. But you've also had previous year of 40%. You've had another year of probably 20, 30%. So the prices are absolutely insane at the moment. And like you said, families are starving, families are struggling with heating. But this fucker's got diamonds, sapphires, rubies, and he's even got something which looks like, I don't know, some form of condition like gout in his fingers because he eats the finer foods too much.
Too much red wine, too much steak. Got fucking
Yeah.
gout. To be fair, I don't know how I've not got gout, but maybe it's not wearing a diamond hat all the time and being a total cunt. Anyway, should we move on to the last story of the week?
Let's do it.
Oh, it's a bit of a complicated one, actually. It's Swan Bitcoin. So, Swan Bitcoin, it's a bit of a funny one, Swan Bitcoin, right? Because they're a Bitcoin-only exchange, that they are largely American-only, so we don't really see them that much in our market. But they're getting a lot of heat again, so I just thought I'd shove it in here because it's largely, they've got a lot of heat from the regulatory measures that are coming their way. And I think this guy had a very balanced view of why Swan Bitcoin are having to communicate what they're communicating, which essentially what they've told their users is, if you are going to send Bitcoin to Swan, don't send it from a CoinJoin/Mixer. And if you are taking Bitcoin out of Swan, don't send it straight to the Mixer, because the existing regulation that exists or that is coming out, specifically in America, prohibits that. And it means that essentially will start setting off fraud flags. That you are essentially anonymizing the Bitcoin that's coming in has been anonymized, and the Bitcoin going out is going to be specifically anonymized straight away. So they're telling their users, look, you're going to get a load of fraud flags on you. So if anything, they're giving you the heads up. Normally, if this was a normal bank, this wouldn't get sent out to customers. This would just be okay, that's our new fraud rules. That goes to the fraud team. And then suddenly customers will start falling foul of it. Swan are going, this is what the regulators are telling us we have to flag. We have to flag these things. So if we see you sending Bitcoin to a Mixer or we receive it from a Mixer, we have to send a fraud flag into the US government. We don't want to do that. So we're giving you a heads up. If you have mixed your Bitcoin, send it to another wallet first and then send it to us. And if you're going to mix the Bitcoin you take out of Swan, send it to a normal Bitcoin wallet, then send it to the Mixer. That's all they're saying, right? But Bitcoin Twitter is just being at them going, oh no, they're government cucks. They're like working for the regulators. And I fundamentally disagree because I just think, look, they are a US company that has to abide by the regulatory rules. Otherwise, they go to prison and get shut down, right? So they are being as transparent as they possibly can be without breaking the law, going, here's the heads up, guys. Don't use mixers directly with Swan because we'd have to report it. We don't want to be rats, but if we don't rat on you, we'll go to prison. So please don't make us have to rat on you. Be a bit smart about it. It's not that hard. And then we won't have to rat on you. And
there's like comments about bending the knee and all sorts. It's like he's just told you what his regulatory requirements are and the fact that he'll go to prison if he doesn't meet them.
Yeah.
But you're sitting there arguing, calling him a cook.
Yeah.
I didn't like that because ultimately this is a quality, company in terms of Swan. They're trying to provide people with the overview of, okay, listen, don't do this, and we won't fall foul. You won't fall foul, but if you do or you don't listen, then you will, and we'll have to do what we need to do in order to stay in business.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I think this is a classic case because obviously we come from a regulatory environment, right, where we understand that it's easy to say on Bitcoin Twitter, "Fuck the regulators."
Yeah,
Yeah, and if you're
you're
an
right.
individual, you can do that. You kind of can. But if you're a company that's listed officially in a country and you're specifically a financial institution in that country, if you don't follow regulatory guidance, you'll go to prison for a fucking long time.
Yeah, they'll try and shut you down. They'll fine you. They'll send you to prison. So it's just like,
Yeah, like AML and KYC, I know it's the enemy of Bitcoin, and I completely agree it is, which is why, if anything, Swan have done the best thing they could do here, right? They've given everyone the heads up. The worst thing that Swan could have done is gone, oh, this regulation's come out. This is the new guidance. Because before, as far as I understand anyway, by sending it to CoinJoin or any mixer, that was not a fraud flag before. It now is, or it's about to be. So they're going, just so you know, this is a thing. So avoid it. Like we're literally, it's like when you're driving through and on your Google Maps, it tells you a speed camera's about to come up. Right? It's not like enforcing the speed limit on the fucking road. It's just going, there's a speed camera that's about to get you. So maybe slow down. Like you don't have to. Speed through it. We don't give a shit. But you're gonna get a ticket. And they're saying the same thing, really, going that we don't want to do this thing, but you're about to hit a speed camera, which is you've sent us Bitcoin directly from a mixer, or you're sending Bitcoin directly to a mixer. The regulators have said that's not a thing anymore. You look like a fraudster and you'll get a lot of fraud flags on you. And who knows what happens after that, right? You might have bank accounts closed down, you might get audited, a whole host of like things might transmission. You might get your credit score, might go to zero. A whole load of bad things could happen because they're going to assume you're the worst type of financial criminal by sending Bitcoin to a mixer. So I look at this and go, like, Swan are doing the best thing they can do. They're being If anything, Swan might get in trouble just for being transparent. If I was the
I think it's a
regulators,
risky communication.
yeah. If I was the regulators, I wouldn't like the fact that Swan have given people the heads up because now this makes it very easy to dodge that regulation by just bunny hopping it from one wallet.
As opposed to it being in the small print of their T's and C's.
Yeah. So I think Swan should be getting kudos for this communication as opposed to hate.
Agreed. Agreed.
Yeah, it's very easy to be like anonymous guy on Bitcoin Twitter and going, oh yeah, fuck the government, fuck regulation. Just you shouldn't be ratting on Bitcoin as ever. And you go, well, of course, like we all agree, but we live in the fiat world right now where regulation does exist. And if they say sending Bitcoin to a mixer or from a mixer to an exchange needs to be reported, then you're going to have to report it. You just do, because they're going to come and audit you. And when they do audit you, if you're the CEO of that company, you go to prison for the rest of your life. It's not like a little slap on the wrist. This is a straight away. It's like, you're into the decades worth of prison time here. And so I think people are being a little bit harsh on Swan. But anyway.
There we have it. Another episode in the can. Anything else that I think, the Bitcoin ETF is still trending on X right now. Yeah. So CNBC host questions why the SEC hasn't approved a spot Bitcoin ETF because Chairman Gary Gensler certainly understands Bitcoin. So that's Cathie Wood on crypto, basically. So Cathie Wood was on CNBC, and it's not to say that it won't, but it's just not right now. Just look, yeah.
Yeah, no. We'll see where we are next week. Who knows? I think this is going to be this whole. It's almost annoying, this ETF news, because
Hmm.
it's annoying because I don't really care. I guess I care for like price appreciation and all that kind of good stuff, but I know it's temporary because the Bitcoin that's going to get held in there, it's going to be custodial. It's paper Bitcoin. It's going to be
Yeah.
fucking held by BlackRock. Of all the companies in the fucking world to hold the Bitcoin, it's going to be BlackRock. I don't want any people who are holding their Bitcoin there. So, but look, it's bullish for Bitcoins. I guess we've got to get behind it, but I
It's
honestly
just it's
don't
a short term thing which I think will help adoption, but long term I think it'd be a hell of a problem.
care. Yeah, it both helps
So
and hinders adoption because
okay, so somebody's put out a fake and fraudulent filing under the BlackRock name in Delaware, and that's caused a lot of uproar.
yeah.
So again, one we'll probably pick up on there next week. But for now, that was Pod 120, brought to you by Mr. All-In, aka the $1 Trillion Man, Dr. Evil 10%, aka the People's Champ, myself, Sir Neverlook, aka the Excellence of Execution, and surprise, surprise, Mrs. No Show, still to this day, no show. Peace.